Talk Public.
Jones, hope you're good, hope you're well. Apologies for the slight delay today. All being well, we've managed to sort things out. So, always a pleasure to come your way. Now, coming up on today's show, Nigerians will go to the polls to elect a new president, 25th of February, so which works out to be Saturday. Wow, it's just around the corner. We'll be talking more about that. But we begin the show with the Church of England. Anglicans reject that Justin Welby, in a sense, the Church of England have now said that, gay sex marriages can be blessed in the church. And Anglican churches across Africa have rejected this. What does this mean for the Anglican Church? What does this mean for you as a Christian, as a believer? Whether you claim to be an Anglican or not, you are a Christian. Are you not? I'd like to hear from you today. My producer just told me, actually, we're going to talk about that after the break. So for now, we'll begin with the elections that's coming up on Saturday. And to help us to discuss this issue is Priscilla Nwikpo. She needs no introduction, really, because she's a familiar face on this show. She's a broadcaster and also a very good friend of mine, a good friend of the show. Priscilla, welcome.
Hi, Jones. It's a pleasure to be here. Always good to be here.
Yes. Let's get into it. But before I come to you, Priscilla, because I know that you're very knowledgeable about Nigeria politics and everything. And not to mention, a couple of weeks ago, one question that you posed to the presidential candidate, Tinubu, and which went viral. It would be good to hear your take very, very soon. But we have a caller, I believe, on the line, which I think would be good to hear his point on the upcoming election in Nigeria. So if you can hear me, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? And what would you like to say?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. What's your name?
Oh, my name is Peter and I'm calling from London.
Hi, Peter. What would you like to say?
I would just like to say with the upcoming elections, the candidates are quite interesting. Obviously, me and most Nigerians I know were rooting for Peter Obi, but the problem is he's gonna be so frustrated he won't be able to do as much as people expect him to do.
When you say he will be frustrated and not do as much as people expect him to do, what exactly do you mean?
What I mean is, like, people keep saying the government are bad leaders in Africa, but they forget that the government is a reflection of the people. So if you start from the average Nigerian on the street or the average African guy, they're corrupt within themselves. Like even from the policemen on the streets collecting bribe and whatnot. So if say for example the governors in Nigeria, when every month the federal gives the government each state their budget, but it's up to the governor to pay the staff, and the governor don't pay the civil servants. And we have to remember they're immune from prosecution. So say for example you give the governor of Lagos State the budget for Lagos State. If he doesn't pay the civil servants, the teachers, the nurses, the judges, what can you do? You can't do anything.
But isn't this what Peter Obi has promised to try to bring an end to?
But he can't do it all himself. Even in the US, they have, like, before the president makes a certain decision, the House of the Senate, they vote. They have to vote on certain things. Just because you're the president don't mean you can just make a decision and it goes.
Of course, but let me ask you, what do you think could potentially hinder Peter Obi from becoming the president of Nigeria?
What's always been corruption, stealing of ballot boxes, and stuff like that.
Okay, so all right. So before I let you go, what about the electoral process? Saturday, Nigerians will go to the polls to vote. Earlier on this month, we were able to speak to some Nigerians in Nigeria who said that they didn't have faith in the whole electoral system. I want to know your take. Do you think this time is going to be free and
I
fair?
don't have say in the electoral system myself, because apparently the last election, apparently Atiku won it, but Buhari still remained president. So there you go.
Okay.
So for argument's sake, he could win. Let's say he wins, but the problem is not who wins. The problem is who is sitting on the seat come May when the next president is inaugurated.
All right. Thank you very much for calling in, Peter. I don't know whether you're an obedient as well or not. No pun intended there. You can also call in. Let's hear from you. The numbers will come up on your screen. Priscilla, so the election in itself.
Yes.
You speak to Nigerians, some Nigerians, not all, very skeptical. But what Peter said seems to echo what a lot of Nigerians are saying.
Well, yes and no. Yes, if we were under the old way of doing things. No, because so much has changed in this current election cycle. So it's an exciting time right now, as far as I'm concerned, for the Nigerian electorate, for the election cycle, and for the whole process itself. It's on a different level to what we're used to. We are now seeing, having been in this arena for some time, one of the things I continually say is that what is lacking with the African democracy is the participation of the people.
Yeah.
And I believe that we are seeing the participation of the people right now in this Nigerian election. Peter Obi's running for presidency isn't something that he just sort of decided on his own. In as much as no doubt he would have had the dream, but I think he also had the encouragement and the support of young Nigerians who were literally goading him online and threatening him and saying, if you don't run, if you leave these parties and go and join a smaller party, we will support you. And he did that indeed, and you can see that they're supporting him now. So, and that has sparked and inspired, I would like to say, because that's what I see. It's inspired a different way of doing things. It's inspired, he used the term go and verify. And now the people, the young people most especially, have learned how to verify issues, have learned how to make sure that, they are checking out and making sure that their candidates are accountable, that their candidates are worthy, that their candidates should be people of substance, and they should be worthy of the position. And it's not just the big manship thing anymore that we once used to have. So I think that with that happening, stirring the process, it means that it's no longer business as usual, coupled with the fact that President Buhari has also promised Nigerians, he tells Nigerians that he wants to have a legacy. And because he wants to have a legacy, he wants to ensure that it is free and fair. And so he says, even on the campaign trail with his his party's aspirant candidate, he says, go out and vote for whoever you want to. I will make sure that you will be safe, So it's very interesting.
Why do you think that is, the fact that it's always been a two-horse race, but now all of a sudden, the obedience factor has really captured everyone's imagination?
It's amazing, isn't it? It's a two-horse race in most places. It's a two-horse race here in the UK, likewise in the United States. And so you will find that for every major country, it tends to be that. But I think the obedience movement, something that I don't even think the obedience themselves realized. It took us all by surprise. Like I said earlier, it's their involvement. It's the fact that it's the way they have been inspired by their candidate, I think, that has completely changed. People have realized that, look, if we want to change, we have to be involved. If we want to change, we are the ones that need to make that happen. And it's not up to the man that is running, for instance, but we have to make it happen. And I think it's the resolve that is causing the excitement, that is bringing the change that we're all seeing. People are fed up. They've had enough, and they want that change, it seems right now, by any means necessary.
Now, I've said this on this show many times that about the importance of this election in Nigeria as a whole, not just across the continent of Africa, but also within the international community itself. And one country in particular, Germany, they have a very keen eye on this upcoming elections, where it's almost as if they contemplating the possibility that may ensue in the aftermath of the election. And one might ask, why? Why? I mean, we've had several elections in Nigeria. There hasn't been that much of an interest from the international community.
Yeah.
This particular one, there's a lot of interest.
There is a lot of interest because, like I said, it's no longer business as usual. Peter Obi says something. He says, I and Dati, that Dati being his VP, are not running for president. You are running through us. So he's empowering the people, carrying them along, making them feel that this is all about them and not necessarily about his ambition. We've never seen that before. What we've always had are men who are seeing through their ambitions. And indeed, I think that his two other front runners are men that are trying to see through their ambitions, and they're challenged because people are not as interested in you wanting to live out your ambition as much as they want a better country. And so I think that's where the problem is, because it's no longer about the candidates, but it's now about the citizens. And so if Germany is concerned, I mean, that article was rather interesting. I found that German article that was written, I was quite concerned about, that there was a paragraph in there that spoke about the fact that if Peter Obi was to win, that it is his desire to see Nigerians being treated better.
Better, yes.
And so, can you imagine? And so Germany was concerned about that. And I thought, wow, so you would like to just hold us all down and continue to literally walk over us. And so that certainly is encouraging. And everybody's trying to see if indeed he will emerge. And, except, of course, if the old order are still going to hold sway as they've done in times past. But it's interesting because they seem divided.
Speaking of old order, I don't want us to be, criticized or accused of being party obedient. So let's talk about Tinubu and Atiku. Of course, they're also in a race, and some might say probably Tinubu favorite to win simply because, the incumbent.
Yeah.
Usually it's difficult for an incumbent to lose an election. Let's talk a bit about Tinubu. Last couple of weeks, actually, we had David on here, and he spoke about his research article based on Tinubu's alleged...
David Hundayin.
Yeah, David Hundayin.
Yeah.
I actually tried to... his surname, because actually I had to say to him, can you pronounce his surname? Because, I'm very funny about not pronouncing his surname.
Yeah.
Right. David Hundayin.
Yeah.
Okay, so his article and documentary about Tinubu, the alleged involvement in drug trafficking and money laundering. And to which he said when the documentary came out and the article came out, people were really, really shocked to see that this is there, but we've never spoken about it. Nobody really spoke about it. And I asked him, has this had any implications on his campaign at all? And he kind of suggested that it has, because people are starting to refer to him, by names. This establishment, I'll call them APC, PDP. How do you see that?
Well, Jones, how do I start? It's been a really interesting play for both of them. What we're seeing with both parties is that, first of all, they're at each other's throat. So they're taking one another to court on whatever, accusations they have against each other. Then, we're also having the situation where indeed the ruling party at the moment, as much as they are, the ruling party, but there are issues, as David had said, regarding Tinubu.
All right. Just pause.
Let me pause there.
Okay. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, we continue with our discussion. We'll be right back.
Leatherback helps you move your money securely from one country to another with ease. With over 20 currencies to choose from, including Indian rupee, Naira, Ghanaian cedi and US dollar, with Leatherback you can move money anytime, anywhere. Simply sign up, verify your identity and you're ready to add money to your account. Leatherback is licensed in 4 countries, and with full visibility of your cash flow via our dashboard, you're in control. One access, one platform, one world. Download the Leatherback app and let the journey begin.
I am so hungry. This I want to kill me.
I'll save you, Grandpa.
Go and get Grandpa's dinner.
Okay.
Whether you're looking for poundo in crayfish stock, all-purpose seasoning, or any other ingredient, Tropical Salt has everything you need.
Hey, no. Take the panted yam. My strong young man. My hero.
I think Mommy's a real hero.
Tropical Salt, flavors of the world to your table.
I'm so hungry. This I want to kill me.
I'll save you, Grandpa.
Go and get Grandpa's dinner.
Okay.
Whether you're looking for poundo in crayfish stock, all-purpose seasoning, or any other ingredient, Tropical Salt has everything you need.
Hey, no. Take the panted yam. My strong young man. My hero.
I think Mommy's a real hero.
Tropical Salt, flavors of the world to your table.
Welcome back to the program. Just to remind you that we're streaming live on Facebook and also on YouTube. So if you're watching, send your comments in, all right? And we'll put your comments to our guest. And I believe that we also have the phone lines activated. The numbers will appear on your screen. So pick up the phone and call in. Now, joining us in the studio to discuss the topics today, we have Julius Boluto, who's a journalist, also a broadcaster, and editor of Informer East Africa. Thank you for joining us, Julius.
Always a pleasure.
Let me come back to you, Priscilla. We're talking about the upcoming election in Nigeria.
Yeah.
You're talking about Tinubu.
Right, indeed, we're speaking about Tinubu. So Tinubu, as you made mention, you know, David Hundeyin, bless him, he has done great work as an investigative journalist, and he has really dug out in detail, complete with evidence of the whole, you know, drug accusation or drug matter concerning Tinubu. And so he put that out, and of course, you know, it got tongues wagging.
Yeah.
Now, this is not his first article of such depth. He does these articles, and then he gets all the threats that we're going to sue, and he's waiting, and nobody sues him, or they just keep quiet. So for a while, you know, they were silent about it. But I think that I think it was after the whole Chatham House situation that, you know, it really sparked, because the Nigerian dailies or the Nigerian media were not carrying that story. They weren't talking about it. It was just being discussed online. But then since the whole situation from Chatham House, they started, you know, discussing, talking about it, mentioning it. So it has had an
Chatham
impact.
House was actually interesting because I think it was myself and Julius that discussed that event. I'll call it eventful day. Never in history have I witnessed such a thing where presidential candidates being asked questions and then he delegates. Who answers
Jones,
the
you can't
questions.
imagine what it felt like sitting there and observing that live.
Now you were there, and I just before I come to you, Julius, your question to Tinubu, which went viral.
Yeah.
A question about his age. I mean, talk about it. Let's hear your views.
Okay, well, you know, it wasn't just a matter of his age. There was a whole drug baron situation. There's his identity. There's his age. There's his health issues. There are, you know, there are, you know, a host of things that he needed to address, and nobody were talking about it. Nobody was asking, and it seemed so. For me, I was sitting there in Chatham House listening to the questions that were being asked, and yes, there was nothing wrong with those questions, but you know, these were issues that needed clarity. We needed to hear from him on them. Are they lies? If they're lies, then correct them. If, you know, tell us what they are. Just explain, because they've been in our, you know, in the Nigerian conversation for quite some time and for over years, but nobody's really attended to it. So then, you know, I sat there in my chair and I was just thinking, if I have to be honest, I was just thinking to myself, so is this how we're going to come and go home? You know, this is a conversation I was having with myself. Well, we can't really go home like this, because then it defeats the whole idea. But then how do you ask this question without coming across as though you're attacking? Because, you know, we're not going to see it as a friendly question. It's going to be, people will take it, you know, in however they want to take it. So it was a matter of, so I sat there for some time in my chair, just sort of fighting with myself as to, well, with God really, as to how we're going to ask this question. And then, you know, I just felt, well, you're going to ask it, but you're just going to find a way. And then as I started, I just sort of thought, okay, well, we're gonna work with what he's given us, and I tend to work that way. I'm going to work with what you have told us. Yeah. You know, he told us he was a team player. He told us he was, you know.
We saw that.
Right. So, okay. So let's work with that. You know, we can see that you're a team player. It's great, but they're not the ones that are applying for the job.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the buck stops with you. So you speak to us. And, you know, I was just wondering if you're going to touch on these things. But you know what was so interesting was Alex Vine, who was moderating the whole conversation, also just chipped in and said, yes, and your health as well. I've been reading about them online. Please answer that question. Yeah. So that really helped to make sure that the question was addressed. And so the room just sort of went silent.
Well, I think I said this story before I come to you, Julius. I said this story with Priscilla. It was a Nigerian politician. And he had a press conference, and then I think somebody sent a junior journalist there, and the journalist out of nowhere, his first question, leading question was, so who's bankrolling you? To which everyone, you know, started shouting at him. I think they even took his camera away from him, and all I could hear was somebody saying, I told you not to ask that question. See your life. See your life.
See your life.
But
they even have a better one, Nigeria. They say, one day you know Nigeria is not for you.
Right?
I want to talk about this because Correct me if I'm wrong, but Nigerians in the diaspora cannot vote yet, can they?
No.
But Kenyans can. And I just want to talk about the importance of that, because you were able to vote in the I think it was in August, wasn't it? Elections.
A very interesting election. Of course, I fought it for the first time back. At some point, I was like, the ink that they put on my nail never came off until after. Actually, my nail outgrew it. It couldn't come off. So I began to, very tempted to sue the electoral body for that. But away from that, jokes aside, Kenyans have really, diaspora been for many years clamoring to be given the right to vote. Because the thing is, when you talk about remittances, which politicians capitalize on all the time, we love our diaspora. They send billions, right? But they say that, it stops there. When you want to be treated as a Kenyan that time, you are like, you cannot vote. Yeah. So it didn't just come. They fought for it for many years, but in the end, they can vote. Of course, not every country, but they are still doing that in a progressive manner. They started with the nearest countries. Now they extended to Europe and also, in the Middle East and also US. So they keep each year increasing the boundaries, more countries where Kenyans can vote.
Okay, so it wasn't done across...
Not across everywhere at the same time. It's about something to do with the preparedness, with the money allocated for voting, because it's a huge exercise to organize an election. And also, in a country like UK, it's a bit complicated as well, because one of the challenges you realize when you're voting in a different country, probably the quickest place you can do that is the embassy. Why? Because I don't know about electoral laws in Nigeria or other places, but according to Kenyan one, for you to declare a place as an electoral place, there's laws that govern that. So which means you can't have it as easy as you want, except in the embassy.
No, it makes sense because the embassy is technically Kenya.
Yeah, it is.
So if you're going to vote for Kenya in the UK, it doesn't make sense to vote anywhere else but in Kenya. So then thus it has to be in the embassy.
We're increasing is about the numbers of people who can do it, because Kenyans are scattered, for example, across UK, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, so it's to tell someone to fly from Scotland to come and vote. They want to ask you, if you're the government, are you going to buy the air ticket?
But they could do postal.
So those are the issues, So, and also some live very far, like it's not just a flight, it's a flight and accommodation. And also many people, why do I leave my whole day's work to go and vote? So those are the challenges. But I believe every country in Africa, the diaspora must be given the right to vote.
That's right.
I also believe that diaspora must be given all rights. They shouldn't be treated lesser, because some countries have that tendency. They see diaspora like you're in the UK, they begin to think you're on the same side as people who colonized them, and they start to hold placards against you. But I'm using figure of speech, not being treated as a total Kenyan or total Nigerian or whatever. It's important for our diaspora in any country to be able to vote.
Earlier, I asked Priscilla about the upcoming elections in Nigeria and how countries like Germany are keen. I just want to hear your take, the international community, really looking at what's happening in Nigeria.
That time comes nice. I was so much concerned that I would miss answering that question because, wow, it's not a nice thing. Jonas, listen, Kenya, we've been there. Look, number one, I wonder why Africans, we cannot trust ourselves that we can run our own institutions with 100% trust. When you come to the UK, I'm going to illustrate that. Elections happening here, the ballots are printed locally, they don't import them, they don't do anything. It's not a big thing, they trust the system, things work. Come to Kenya, for example, it's good to use this example. The election that was nullified, 2017 in Kenya, all the ballot papers printed outside the country. The conducting of the election, the technology is being used controlled away from Kenya. So when there was a deadlock, the opposition who had law saying, can we get the servers open? Or the electoral body. These ones are in France. Could be nighttime. They can't be opened. Right? Now, this election which is just concluded, all the ballot papers printed in Greece, all those things. The technology again conducted away from Kenya by a foreign company. When it came to deadlock, this election in 2022, again, demands, open the servers if you want us to believe we lost. The company abroad tells Kenyans we cannot open the servers because we don't want to compromise election in other countries where we operate. This is the thing. You're an African country. You know election, how important it is. You keep yapping, telling the international community, we are a sovereign state. How far does your sovereignty go when you cannot control your journey politically? See, the thing is, all these companies, if you go by what we saw, you remember Cambridge Analytica, how Facebook was used to tilt the outcomes of elections.
By the way, they were involved in the election in 2015.
Nigeria also was affected. Kenya was also mentioned.
I think Ghana as well.
And when you see all this being used, and when you see this interest from like your German right now, it's not German, the other countries. You know, huge interest. Their commercial interest from oil, whatever.
But then,
so,
you know,
the ability of a foreign country to change your election is so much higher.
No, notwithstanding, Julius, but when you talk about the technology needed for quote-unquote free and fair elections, these technology cannot be manufactured in respective countries in Africa, so they have to be imported.
I mean, they are imported because we've heard about it in the US as well, about the machines that they were using during the 2020 election and, you know, and the midterms that they've had. So the whole idea of technology being used is not, they don't always originate, because there's an allegation at the moment that, you know, the issues of the 2020 election, it's alleged to, Italy's, you know, other countries are alleged to be involved. But so I understand the issue about the technology aspect, but I think that Kenya should be able to have a server in Kenya that they can control.
But that's what I'm saying.
And they can access.
Because at the end of the day, right, where is your sovereignty? Where is your protection? If the outcome of an election is contained in a server controlled away from your country, see, number one, it takes away the faith of the people who vote. You come to a position whereby you're like, we feel like every time there's cheating keeps going on, rigging keeps going on, and we are not in control. You know, where we want to be as Africa, we don't have excuses not to have these technologies. We should have by now, since all these years of independence, come up with our own technologies that we can use. If we cannot use this technology, why don't we use the manual?
We're looking out for that in Nigeria right now, where the server is concerned, because it was a subject of issues the last time, and we had all kinds of stories of how they didn't have a server, how the server broke down, so the server died, and all kinds of things. And so Nigerians have been asking the question, do we have a server, and do we have a big enough server?
Well, I've got a question for our viewers and my guests here. Do you have faith, is my question. Do you?
Yeah.
Well,
just
in election or in God?
Right, thank you.
It's good to know which one.
Right, I was about to ask, in what?
Well,
in what?
Leaders of Anglican churches in some African countries, including South Sudan, Uganda, and DRC, have said that they no longer recognize Justin Welby. Of course, he's the Archbishop of Canterbury. They no longer recognize him as the head of the global church. Now, you may be wondering why. Simply because the Church of England now have come out to say that, you know, same-sex marriages can be blessed in church. What is your take on it? I think I'll come to you first, Julius. The issue of religion. Let's talk about the Anglican Church, because I think probably not fair to include
Other
No. I think it's an
Other
Anglican
churches are
church
not
issue.
involved.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
an Anglican
Other
church
churches
issue.
are not involved. We don't
Yeah.
want to complicate the matter.
No, at all.
yeah. So, you see, the thing is, this comes as new, but actually it's not.
Yes.
Remember that in 2003, Gene Robinson became the first priest to be, appointed in the U.S., and he was gay. Immediately when that happened in the U.S., New Hampshire, the church in the U.S., Anglican church in the U.S., broke apart. Some of the section began to say, from today henceforth, we are not under the authority of the U.S. A group went to be under the authority of Nigeria. Another group of the Anglican church went to be under the authority of Anglican church in Kenya. Amazing. So it's not new. Now it came to a different level whereby, because of that action alone, the Anglican church in the UK, some of them began to debate not to allow or invite the leaders from the US in their usual annual conference, which was happening away from London. So when you look into that alone, it's not a new thing. It's been ongoing, but it's taking different undertones and controversies. The latest one being, we saw the other time, Church of England announcing that's going to happen, and they were quick to say you can't do that, and backwards and forwards, but the controversy is still there. Now, where we are right now, you have a situation whereby the bishop is saying that, okay, we are not going to allow it. And it's not just that. Remember them talking about changing of being like gender.
The gender, yes.
Sensitive. So we don't have to say God Father. We can also are we going to say God Mother? It doesn't make any sense to anyone who has grown up as a Christian. These things are neither here nor there, because at the end of the day, you get into a religion and you buy into what's there. You cannot keep on picking and mixing as time goes by. So therefore, to Christians, which is very important, if they are driven and motivated, or they follow the Bible being the most important book in this particular case, there are straight away viewpoints on every issue. It disallows homosexuality, it disallows many other things. So therefore, if you purport to preach from that Bible and you're a bishop, and at some point now you begin to say, I want to change this, you can't. You cannot change the Bible to be gender sensitive. There's no point, there's no way you can begin to say God Mother or begin to say she or he. Not in that context, it wouldn't work. So you either accept it the way it is, or you don't.
But then, Priscilla, I mean, this division within the Anglican Church is about the conservatives and the progressives. And many have argued that the Bible in itself needs to reflect modern day society. So if this is what's happening now, we cannot deny the fact that it is happening. People have come up to, identify themselves as being gay, being transsexual, and so on and so forth. And if this is the direction they're taking, then surely people must accept it.
Okay. Let me clear my throat well. So, when we say the Bible should reflect modern day society, are we then saying that we have a right to determine and to change the Word of God as to what God has, by inspiration, given to us? Now, we make it sound as though the Christian religion, when we say we need to, to modern society, we make it sound as though we're not loving. Because the Bible speaks of the fact that we should owe no man nothing but love. So in other words, whether you're gay, you're transgender, you're whatever it is that you are, I should owe you nothing but love. Now the Bible speaks about the fact that, if you are gay, which is where there is the struggle now in the church, the Bible doesn't welcome that. It frowns on it. And, and as a result of that, it sees it differently. But it doesn't take away from the fact that I still have to love you as a human being, because you're primarily a human being first before anything else. So then I think that, you know, in this situation, we're having politicians, because according to the good bishop, he said, you know, the politicians had called him in and said, you know, this is what they wanted. So he effectively is saying they were forcing it on him, because it is not what he wants to do, but it is what the politicians are demanding.
I think it's right to note that he himself, being the Archbishop, has said on multiple occasions that he will not actually bless marriages.
That's right. He says he will not bless gay marriages, because I think then what the politicians are trying to do is, now you are saying you want to take over the Christian religion and dictate and determine how they should worship their God, or what they should agree or not agree with. You can't force them, because what we're seeing here, which is very, very unfortunate, don't forget, we saw it during the Obama presidency, when he went to Kenya and then spoke to the then Kenyan Uhuru Kenyatta. And Kenyatta, I love the way he responded. He said, you know, for us, this is a non-issue. You just leave us to deal with in our society how we determine, and that was good. So then now you have, we now have here, according to the Archbishop, they are forcing this on him. He doesn't agree with it.
Let me just push it a bit further, because you know, these people who identify as gay also see themselves as Christians.
Listen, I am all about, I get it that we all have to coexist. I'm all about that. But here's where I have issues. I have issues with the fact that someone decides that they're gay, but their feelings now have to supersede everyone else's feeling. Somebody decides that they're in the wrong body, but their feeling now has to supersede everybody else's feeling. We must all disregard what we feel, what we think, what we believe, what we agree. I would like to see them try to charge that with other religions around the world and enforce it in the same way that they do with Christianity. And let's see how other religions also address it. So I think these bishops are well within their rights to say, if that's the path that the Church of England wants to follow, and isn't it interesting that this is happening after the Queen is no longer the head of the church. You know, our late Queen has, our dearly departed Queen, I should say. And so because then it just, we're taking away, we're eroding Christianity. We're deciding and dictating how Christians should worship, and taking their rights away from them. I don't think that they are not being inclusive, because if my brother decides tomorrow that he's gay, I can't say because he's that I'm no longer going to love him.
But that isn't the point. I mean, Priscilla said it earlier that the Bible, the Word of God, was given to mankind through inspiration. And one can identify with the Word of God because if it says male and female, and if you happen to be a male, you can identify because you feel as though your being is directing to you, or it's directing at you. And so 21st century, people have now feel as though they identify differently, and they still believe that they are Christians, but the Bible they're reading does not reflect the individual. And if they want that to be changed, then surely if the Bible was given through inspiration, who's to say that this is not being given or to be adapted in 21st century through inspiration?
Jonas.
Yes.
Who's inspiring politicians?
Well, who is inspiring?
But
That's a
in a
fair
spiritual
question.
manner,
Yeah.
who is inspiring these people? Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
There are categorically of two different groups of people. You may say you have gay and you have heterosexual, name them. Do you see heterosexual people having to fight for their presence to be felt everywhere you go? Supposing it was the other way around, the gay people were on the other side, and they see all these heterosexual people everywhere you go, and it's happening in this country. All these plasters across London, everywhere you go, all these society, council, everything, promotion of these schools,
Yes.
Why should schools teach this and not teach heterosexual way of existing?
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to look at it this way, like there's a campaign somewhere. It's not informed by any religious beliefs. It's just a campaign to change things, to order the world in a particular way. You see, and this is a very sensitive in terms of different cultures. You go to Africa the other time, President Sir Johnson Sirleaf, she said, "Oh, bring that bill for me. I'll never sign it."
I remember seeing that.
That's our words.
Yeah.
Not to be beating about the bush. Of course, Uhuru said, our cultures are not ready. Museveni will say, I don't think why. Words of Museveni. Whatever you know them. So
Yeah.
when it comes to why are they put in that situation? Where is the pressure coming from? See, the thing is, if you left everybody without having to campaign for anything, it's just the way they are, you may realize no one has a issue whichever way of life you choose to pursue. You may find out people are okay. It's just a question of choice. Or it's a question of who you are. But who you are, don't let that be the one whipping stick for everyone else around you.
I know we're really pushed for time, but I just wanted to bring some historical elements to this discussion. Nigeria, for instance, the South, during the colonial times, of course, it was these missionaries who were able to infiltrate and also more or less propagate the colonization from it happening. Now it has come to stay. It changed the way which, let's say, a lot of majority of African countries used to do their things. And Christianity was a way for the colonial masters to penetrate through society. And the colonial masters, the former colonial masters, through, again, the Church of England, in this instance, also looking to change the way things are done. But now here we are, there is an opposition. And I just wanted to know, what you make of this. Is this a way, I don't know, possibly, we've all been talking about liberation and breaking the shackles. I don't know whether this is a way that through this can happen.
Well, so I think it's important for us to also note that, yes, we are told, that's the narrative that we are told, that they came in, they colonized us, they brought Christianity. That's what we are told. Mm-hmm. We haven't been permitted the other side of the narrative. We don't have the full story. We have a singular story from just one direction, as it were. So, the other participants in this situation also need to tell their stories. So that's one aspect of things. But, education was not there, so it's allowed to go on this way because it's been taken out of our system. And I think now we're being challenged because, knowledge abounds and there is, the help of social media and everything else for us.
Julius, briefly?
Yeah. See, the thing is, you can change things, but the other things we've been told should never be changed. And that's the word of God. We've been told you can't change the Bible. If you want to do that, then tell us what you brought to Africa as a religion has been based on falsehoods. Without that, you can't change. It stays the way it is. You either choose it or leave it.
On that note, we bring the show to an end. Thank you very much for watching, and also thank you to our guests, Julius and Priscilla. We're done for another day. All being well, we'll see you next week. Until then, it's goodbye from us.
Talk Talk.